Fire Pit Creative Group presents Aftermath, Episode 6, Bird on a Wire. Between 2057 and 2069, the people of Earth faced many trials: scarcity of resources, plagues, poverty, famine, and despair. The superpowers of the Earth fell into factions, each armed with its own doomsday arsenal. Diplomacy failed, and civilization came to an end, not with a whimper, but with a bang. General Benjamin Castro, the Israeli government's special envoy to the United Nations, was relocated from the UN headquarters in New York City to an underground base. During transport, General Castro was knocked unconscious and preserved in cryostasis. The general awoke 43 years later in a subterranean society built by survivors of the United Nations. Revived by the Phoenix Project, General Castro was introduced to Phoenix law enforcement officer Major Leonard McGillicuddy and Professor John Bath. If they could work together, Castro, Cutty, and Bath would lead the first expedition to the Earth's surface. Aided by Project Administrator Danielle Deveneaux, Chief Surgeon Miro Ghaniyah, and Engineer Donna Cheng, their mission was to determine what life still existed on the world above, and if the survivors in the underground Phoenix Project could return. In the Phoenix Project's top-secret laboratory, Engineer Donna Cheng plunged into an alcove of thick cables and machinery. She checked a terminal, and then turned back to Dr. Miro Ghaniyah. "Doctor, I detected some interference a moment ago." Across the room, Ghaniyah monitored the egg-shaped porcelain containers, the so-called coffins in which General Castro, Major McGillicuddy, and Dr. Bath lay. "What is it?" Ghaniyah asked. One of Cheng's machines that perpetually blinked, buzzed, and beeped was silent. In a rare expression of concern, Cheng gasped audibly. Ghaniyah crossed the laboratory, standing behind Cheng. An overabundance of information in the green stream. Cheng smacked the square console with her palm. It's too much for the conduit to send and receive in real time. Dr. Bath's simulacrum is overloading." Ghaniyah turned quickly. "His vitals are spiking." She watched the row of LCD and LED screens in front of the coffins. "All of their life signs are spiking. We have to get them out of there." Cheng ignored Ghaniyah. The engineer focused on coaxing more power from the generators to the consciousness transference modules. "Hold on, Doctor." Cheng modulated her voice from concern to calm. "We knew something like this could happen." Ghaniyah flipped a switch on Dr. Bath's coffin. She watched Bath's heart rate fluctuate. His brainwaves spiked, then stabilized as if he were sleeping. "What are you doing?" Ghaniyah asked. "I'm trying to amplify the power. If we can draw more." Ghaniyah looked at the ceiling. Massive power cables snaked overhead, down one wall and into Cheng's mishmash of antiquated and upgraded tech. "The laboratory is on a power ration, Cheng. We can't draw more power without permission from the Council." Cheng finally turned. Her face contorted in an expression Ghaniyah didn't expect. "We can't let them die, can we?" Just earlier that morning, Ghaniyah verbally braced the engineer about her motivations. Were Cheng's intentions as part of the mission selfish? She had accused the other woman of having a lack of confidence in General Castro, Cutty, and Bath. She even suggested Cheng believed she was a worthier candidate to participate in the expedition. "I'm pulling the plug." Ghaniyah hovered over the conduits supplying power to the three coffins. "I'm getting them out of there." "If you do that, Miro, it will be the same as sacrificing them. Let me do my job." "What? Saving the simulacrum? Their robot bodies? What good is that?" "Calm yourself." Cheng pulled cables, reorganized, and refitted them. "I'm saving this mission," she said, then flipped a switch. General Castro saw Dr. John Bath's simulacrum sprawled on the floor. A man hovered over Bath, his movements furtive, bestial. "Coming a bit close there, eh, old boy?" the man snarled. "Make a move and I'll slice him like a tender dead kitty." Castro made out the rusted straight razor aimed at Bath's throat. He wondered if Bath's robot body still operated. In the laboratory, Cheng had told the explorers their simulacrum were more resilient than their human bodies. They could withstand the elements and pain more readily. Castro wondered, if Bath was damaged, was he in pain? Did his human body in the lab, encased in the porcelain coffin, suffer injury? "You got them cans on you?" asked the other man. Castro hesitated but held his ground. He looked at Bath, then back at the scavenger. "I don't know what the hell you're talking about." No cans? No dope? No guns?" The man crept towards Castro. "Then what good are you?" Castro held his hands out in a fighting stance. "Bath?" he called out, hoping to rouse the fallen scientist. "John?" The scavenger's laughter was a hyena cackle. "I crept up on him. Whacked him for good, but he's not dead, you dig?" Castro considered the source of the scavenger's guttural dialect, an awkward mix of international slang and cannibalized accents. "Still," the scavenger continued, fearlessly, "you come closer, and we gonna flip for sure." Castro paused, then said, "If that's the way it's gotta be." Before the beast could attack, Castro anticipated, leaping into the other man. He sideswiped the scavenger with a hard knee to his midsection, a swift hand to the back of the head. His blow was measured, or so he thought. It shouldn't have been enough to throw the man to the floor, but it did. The scavenger tumbled. Castro spun, readying himself for another attack. The man hunched low, and then leapt, his razor flashing between them. General Castro kept his eyes on the blade. He grappled the scavenger, getting hold of his arm. With one precise motion, Castro snapped the scavenger's forearm. The scavenger dropped the razor. "That's it," Castro insisted. "Enough." As if shrugging off pain, attacking without thought or choice, the man leapt at Castro again. His good arm swung wildly. His cracked one dangled loosely. Castro made swift use of his attacker's momentum, turning it against him. The general moved behind the other man, gaining a firm hold on his neck. "Don't make me," Castro uttered. He choked the scavenger with his right arm. His left forced the man's head downward. The scavenger wriggled violently, then helplessly. Then his eyes rolled and closed slowly. He gasped, passing into unconsciousness. Castro pushed the warm body off him. He had no doubt the creature was human. Muscles formed in abnormal grooves predominantly along the man's arms, but not his torso. His quadriceps were especially powerful, but not his calf muscles. He wore stained rags and mismatched boots for clothing. Dirt and grime covered his skin. "General," Cutty approached behind Castro. "Is he—" "I had to dispatch this one," Castro motioned to the scavenger. "What about the other two?" "The same," Cutty said. "What about Bath?" I don't know." Castro walked to where the doctor's simulacrum lay. "There seems to be something wrong with his body." He felt Bath's neck. The back of his head was ice cold. Castro turned and looked up, and he saw Major McGillicuddy's hands and coveralls dripping crimson. "Are you all right?" Cutty shrugged. "Yeah." Half a smirk molded into his flexible pseudo-skin lips. "This ain't my blood. Hell, I'm not even sure these robots bleed." Castro nodded. He turned back to Dr. Bath. John, it's General Castro, Benjamin. Wake up. Can you hear me? John." John Bath drifted in and out of consciousness in a paradoxical sleep state. In the coffin, he was unable to discern the corporeal world from a waking dream. Puzzle pieces of memory blended with imagination. John heard his father's voice, deep but kind, an Irish accent he practiced tirelessly to be rid of. "John," his father spoke half sarcastically, "there's no point in celebrating our ancestry. That's all over with. All we are is the Phoenix Project." Bass' mother, brilliant and beautiful with a fair complexion, a slender body, and a strangely childlike way about her, commanded her husband with the same candid force of will she used to negotiate with officials in the project. Diarmid. John remembers everything. John saw them clearly, saw himself. He was an early talker, a swift learner who mastered both of his parents' accents and mannerisms by the time he ceased waddling across blue carpeting in Diarmid Bass' workroom. He was proficient imitating or otherwise mocking the melange of American, European, and Asian dialects he heard in the quad. He imagined himself there. Now, speaking fluently with children who looked nothing like him. Later, they passed notes written in other languages, made up games to pass the time. There was, after all, very little for children to do in the Phoenix Project. He remembered Dean Rand, the head of the academy, coming to their cell-like quarters. Rand was beautiful then, tall and elegant with broad shoulders and long fingers. She spoke little, but she spoke with presence. "You must," she told John's parents, "give him over to the old tutors. John is an autodidact with an eidetic memory. There will come a time when it will be impossible for him to have meaningful relationships with the other children. His talent should be nurtured, not laid to waste." She meant this to be kind, a compliment. John watched his mother consider Dean Rand's offer as she cautiously weighed all the opportunities. His father, however, tightened his forehead. He rejected Dean Rand and her colleagues without hesitation, speaking to his wife, "We're not going to be living underground forever, Caitlin." Drifting in and out of consciousness and sleep, Bath remembered his father's stubbornness, his tenacity. He was a soldier no longer at war, a leader with no one to lead. Diarmid Bass spoke rarely to his son about his experiences in the military, but occasionally he mentioned being transferred to a posting as a special attaché and bodyguard for John's mother, the UK ambassador to the United Nations. That was how they met, and that's why they were together in New York City when the world came to an end. John knew it was only natural to think of his parents when philosophizing on the subject of love, romance, and intimacy. Their love story coincided with the end of their world, and the beginning of his. Maybe this was why John found little satisfaction rationalizing or reasoning on the subject of love. Instead, he preferred cold, calculating logic. And even then, whether wandering through the Phoenix Project or trapped in the transference coffin in this intraconscious state, something was undeniably missing. Dr. Ghaniyah rapped her fist against Dr. Bass' transference module. "Cheng, we're losing them." "We're not losing them," Cheng replied. "Look, the General and the Major's life signs are stabilizing. Something is wrong with Dr. Bass' simulacrum. The interference..." Ghaniyah rushed from Bass' coffin to the biometric control panel. "You're drawing too much power, Cheng. Bass' body can't compensate for the influx of information. If you overload the green stream, he'll end up paralyzed like General Castro, or worse, brain dead." "I know what I'm doing," Cheng said, as she adjusted a dial. It gave her resistance, but she showed no sign of difficulty. "I can manually adjust the flow, cycle it down, and..." "Wait." Cheng rolled away from the power console. She watched Ghaniyah intently. "What are you doing?" Dr. Ghaniyah depressed controls on the porcelain chamber. Its pressurized lid retracted slightly. "I'm injecting Bath with a cocktail of synthetic glucocorticoids." Ghaniyah tapped a long syringe. Behind the doctor and the engineer, the laboratory doors opened. Danielle Deveneaux entered unexpectedly. "Why is the power fluctuating in this block?" She strode purposefully across the laboratory, with a foreign intensity in her usually well-measured voice. "What's going on?" Ghaniyah said nothing. Cheng swiveled in her chair and faced the project administrator. Something happened in the transmission. The two of them watched as Dr. Ghaniyah reached between the opening and the porcelain coffin. Cool air and chemical vapors crawled from the edges of the chamber. "There." Ghaniyah withdrew her hand and the syringe from Bath's coffin. She exhaled, relieved. "That should do it." If his neurological system can tolerate and process the hormones, we can save him long enough to pull him out. Danielle stood between the doctor and the engineer. We aren't cleared to draw more power than we are allotted. We have to get permission from the council. Cheng? Cheng rolled her chair into the alcove of electronics and makeshift power supplies. I'm pulling him back, she said. Ghaniyah watched the biometric displays, the EKG, EEG, and report on fluid distribution. He's coming around. There. Deveneaux approached Ghaniyah cautiously. She saw how important this was to the physician, to the mission. Doctor? Dr. Bath? John? Can you hear me? Deveneaux reached past Ghaniyah. She activated the hydraulic mechanism that retracted the lid to the chamber. Deveneaux was neither an engineer or physician, but she had seen Ghaniyah and Cheng operate the controls enough to have some familiarity with the laboratory, the coffins, and their major components. Dr. Bath roused slowly, as if from a long slumber. Every muscle felt strained, exhausted. I thought I saw my mother, my father. Where was I? As the remaining vapor dissipated, Ghaniyah leaned forward. You're in the lab. She couldn't help but remember when she and Cheng revived General Benjamin Castro. The experience came with a significant accomplishment and great cost. Bath tried clearing his throat, opening his eyes. A dewy liquid covered his eyelashes and lips. From her station nearby, Cheng spoke. Your simulacrum was damaged. We had to bring you back. Bath reached out blindly. Ghaniyah held his forearm. I was knocked out. I thought I was... What happened? Deveneaux said, leaning closer. I don't know. I don't feel so good. Ghaniyah and Deveneaux lifted Bath to a sitting position at the edge of the chamber. Take it easy, Doctor, Ghaniyah said. You've had quite a shock to your system. Bath rubbed his mouth, then his eyes. I went into the base of the statue. I was going to build a fire. What happened to the general? To the major? Deveneaux asked. John shook his head. He was disoriented, still thinking about what he saw in that state between mental transference and dreaming. He longed to remember his parents in a more meaningful way. They were searching the ferry. I think we were attacked. They could be in trouble, Cheng stated the obvious. Ghaniyah pointed at the console to her right. Their life signs have stabilized. They don't appear to be... Dr. Bath interrupted. There were other robots, or simulacrums under Liberty Island. How many? Cheng asked. There were 5 in all. They were in various states of repair. Deveneaux, Ghaniyah, and Bath watched Cheng flip switches with authority, redirecting power to recharge the coffin. A row of multicolored lights flickered on Cheng's console. Then a warning light flashed. Danielle peered in. What are you doing? Someone has to determine the extent of the damage, Cheng said. She pressed a button eliminating the warning light. What do you mean? Ghaniyah asked. If one simulacrum is damaged, I can transmit into another and repair it. We can put Dr. Bath back into action. Deveneaux moved to stand between the engineer and the row of consoles. Wait a minute, Cheng. Nobody's transmitting anywhere, not until I've briefed the council. Deveneaux glared at the engineer for a long moment. Cheng remained expressionless. Although she was much younger than the other woman, Deveneaux held her ground. In that moment, Bath understood why the Central Processor and Shadow Council selected Danielle Deveneaux to administer the mission. At least for a moment, he respected her. He couldn't help but wonder if he could gain Deveneux's confidence. She would make a helpful ally. What do you want me to do? Bath asked. Relax, Dr. Bath. Deveneaux touched his shoulder. You're grounded until further notice. Deveneaux walked to the middle of the laboratory. Behind her, Ghaniyah assisted Bath. The doctor turned to Cheng. She spoke quietly. You planned this all along, didn't you, Donna? Planned what? Bath said. Deveneaux spoke, her voice raised. Myrrell, take the doctor to the infirmary. See to it that he gets the best care possible. Then, you're with me. I want to know exactly what happened here. Aftermath, a Fire Pit Creative Group production. Based on a story created by Rhett Davis, with characters created by Rhett Davis, Warren Davis, Willem de Greef, and Cole Hoopingarner. Original script by Warren Davis, with Cole Hoopingarner. Narrated and produced by Cole Hoopingarner, with music by Warren Davis. Links to the sound effects used for Aftermath can be found in the description section of each episode. Aftermath and its story and characters are copyright 2019 by Fire Pit Creative Group.